Hello, everybody. Really excited to introduce our speaker tonight. Charlotte Canion is a Texas superstar master gardener. She's going to be talking to us about some of the plants that do really well in our extreme heat conditions here in North Texas. And of course, we've had an abundance of that lately, so it's a great topic for us. Charlotte is part of the Denton County Master Gardeners Association. And additionally, she is an author of multiple books, but most recently an award-winning book of You Have to Laugh to Keep from Crying, How to Parent Your Parents. And she's done acting. She's also this year's first runner-up as Miss Texas Senior America. So lots of very interesting experience in the world of speaking. So I'm anticipating a great discussion tonight. Charlotte, I'll let you take it from here and give us a little more background. You're on mute.
Yeah, I was trying to get it off. Okay, can you hear me now?
We can.
Okay, and are you able to see the PowerPoint?
Yes, we do.
Okay. As she said, I'm a Texas Superstar Master Gardener, but I want to give you a little background of why I became a Master Gardener. I know each one of you have a story, probably of, why you got into koi ponds or, the pond area of the gardening. And I have a little pond myself, but not real. I'll tell you that story later. But about 23 years ago, I had a father-in-law that lived with me, and he developed dementia. Well, within 6 weeks, my mother was diagnosed with Alzheimer's and my dad was diagnosed with Parkinson's. And the reason this is relevant, it was a 16-year journey of caring for these three parents. Thus, at the end of the journey is where the book came from. But halfway through the journey, I got cancer. I allowed the stress and everything to get to me. And one thing I did learn is you've got to care for the caregiver first. I know you've heard this before, but if you get on an airplane, what's the pilot tell you? If the oxygen masks fall, put yours on first and then take care. The same thing with caregiving, but I didn't know that halfway through my journey. But I got cancer, but God was teaching me that I needed to take care of myself. So after I had 2 surgeries, 36 treatments and all, I'm thinking, okay, God, you're teaching me something. What do I love and what do I want to do? And all of a sudden, master gardening came up to the surface. So I took the year-long course, became a master gardener. And you probably could tell by my intro, I'm a little bit of an overachiever, not a whole lot, but a little bit of an overachiever. So the next year I went to San Antonio, and you have to go down there for a week to get your Texas Superstar certification. So basically, there's only a handful of us up in North Texas that have this Texas Superstar T-shirt, and I don't know if y'all can see that, but anyway, I'm just really proud. I love to speak, and let's go back a little bit. Lisa was talking about being an actress. Most of us are probably old enough to remember the Dallas series. I was on the Dallas series. I did a lot of bit parts and extra parts. I was actually Priscilla Presley's stunt woman on the Dallas series. I've worked with Sly Stallone and worked with Robert Duvall on Tender Mercy. So I have a stage experience. So just to let y'all know, and I have to caveat this. She said I was first runner-up to the Mrs. Texas Senior America, and I'm going to give you a snippet of my talent. Senior time and the living ain't easy. Knees are hurting, cholesterol's high. Ain't got no money for retirement. So hush, little senior, don't you cry. Anyway, that's kind of how I started my comedy skit, and then I told jokes for almost 3 minutes, and I guess they liked my talent. So if I go into a joke, you'll have to forgive me, just what I do. But y'all wanted to hear about Texas Superstar plants and the definition of them in a nutshell. I think I have a few slides I'm going to skip through because you don't need to know all the background. But a Texas superstar plant was designed, and I guess it's been about 15 years ago when they started the Texas Superstars, and it was started by at Texas A&M, of course. And I, I know I can't interact with y'all, but usually I'll say, does anyone have any idea what the first Texas Superstar plant was? Well, it was a Texas bluebonnet. Obvious. I mean, that's almost obvious. We live here in Texas. But how many of y'all know that there are 7 different colors of Texas bluebonnets?
I did.
Did you know that? Well, it comes in what they call an intense blue, which is the Lady Bird Johnson. So it even has purpley tones to it. And then there's a pink, and they call that one Abbott pink. And then, of course, they're Aggies, right? There's got to be a maroon, bluebonnet. And then there's the light pink. And then there's the dark purple, which is called Purple Heart. And then there's the red, and it's called Henry's Red. Now, I'm going to tell you a quick fact about how they get to those colors, because I thought it was really intriguing. If you've ever looked out over a field of Texas bluebonnets, you will see some that are discolored. And I'm sure y'all are aware that the pollinators are the one that carry that pollen, and that changes the colors of plants from time to time. So if they find a group of pink ones, they will dig them up, and they have to move them over 20 miles away so that they can hybrid that blue color. So that's in a way how they came up with all these different colors. And I thought it was really intriguing. I think I have, if I can get the slide to go through. Yeah, I'm not going to go through. Okay, there's the Lady Bird Johnson. And in just an FYI, occasionally there'll be a bumblebee or a butterfly moth or on some of these. And it was a fascinating class because there were 7 professors that were from Texas A&M, and they were jokesters. So if you see some of these bugs and they don't look exactly like they're real or alive, it's probably true, because they love to take the bugs out there and sit them in their picture just so they, have something interesting. So it was a real intriguing class. See, there's that white patch in the middle of all those bluebonnets, and they will dig all of those up. And there's actually 5 locations in Texas where farmers allow them to have acres to, put these Texas superstar plants. And Texas superstar plants, and I'm going to say this with a little caveat because I've been around them long enough, and you'll see as we go through, they're supposed to withstand whatever soil they're in. And they're supposed to, like I said, I'm giving you a little caveat here. They're supposed to only thrive on whatever rain we get. So whatever soil you put them in, whatever rain. Well, I always amend my soil in my yard. I just, I feel like it's going to be better, and we know here in North Texas, my neighbor can have different soil than me. And of course, when you build a new house, you're going to have all kinds of garbage that got plowed under. So anyway, with that being said, I mean, I believe them, but it's like, okay, when we get to the end of this presentation, you're going to go, okay, that is not going to survive. And you'll know when we get to it without water. And you'll know what I'm talking about when we get to it. And y'all are pond lady. I have to tell y'all real quick. I put in one of those. Well, actually, I have 20 grandchildren, by the way. And I had one of my grandchildren, a couple of them, dig a hole and put in one of those prefab ponds. And my grandbabies wanted me to have fish in the pond. Well, I've managed to kill 44 fish. And then we turned it into a turtle pond. And then the turtles got away. So now it is a plant pond, but I love it. I have my calla lilies. I did grow water lilies at one time. And I tell people, I said, they're not real rewarding. They're kind of like a Texas star hibiscus. And I don't know if y'all know what that is, but if you don't, you might want to look, that's another presentation. But they only bloom for maybe a day and then they go away. And that's what I found with the water lilies, except they took over the top of the pond. They were overly invasive. So what I've done is I actually have my water lily, my water canif, in a container that I got at one of the garden shows that's cloth. It allows the water and, allows it to breathe, but it keeps them contained and they don't take over my pond. Anyway, begonias, believe it or not, begonias are a Texas superstar, and they're very hardy, but you have to be careful which begonia you buy. There are the ones with the dark leaves, they do better in shade. The one with the greener leaves do better in sun. So, be careful which begonias you buy, but they are very hardy. They have actually survived this summer because I have about 7 plants, and they may get a little spindly from time to time, or leggy, if you want to call it that, but they're a good hardy plant here in North Texas. And the helium is yellow. Now, I would use it in the backdrop of a flower bed or up to a fence, because the helium will get up to like 18 inches tall, but the butterflies love it. Now, we're talking about, seeing the dragonflies, and I've seen some dragonflies, but I have not seen butterflies this year. And I have a butterfly garden that I have about 15 different plants in, and I have not seen the butterflies that I normally see. I don't know. I realize that the monarchs are, they're an endangered species right now mainly it's because of the fire they had down there, or the blight. They had a blight also that killed a lot of the trees where they migrate to, which is down near Mexico City. But I do see a lot of bees and wasps and different sized bumblebee. They're going nuts this year. I guess they're loving it. Now, they do love my bird baths though too. They got to get plenty of water. And with evaporation, you're right. I think it was Harry that was talking about how things are evaporating. I lose 2 inches of water every day when it's 100 degrees out of my bird baths, and I've got 3 of them in my yard. And I don't have a big yard. I just have a normal house lot. But you definitely know I was a master gardener, because I definitely have more flower beds than I do grass. I don't know if that's a plus or minus to my husband, because he has to go around my flower beds, but anyway, he does. Okay, this next one, okay, now what do you think about that bug? Real or not? Not. That's one of those that one of the clowns put in. Some of these pictures are extracted from the program that they gave us down there. Now, I was down there for almost a week, so I'm not going to show you a week's worth of slides, I promise you. I just kind of picked the special ones. But this is in the buttercup family. I don't know if anyone knew that. And it comes in whites to blues to violets, and you can kind of see the blues, and some of the violets in there. Now, the next one is one of my favorites. That's the Mandeville. And if you've ever been down to San Antonio, they're all over the Riverwalk. I love the Mandevilles, and they come in hues of the pinks to the purplies. They're in that family. Except this year, I have had 2 of the most gorgeous Mandevilles in about a 3-foot basket hanging on my fence until this heat wave hit. And then the squirrels decided they would chop down some of them and lay on the soil that I kept moist and cool. I want to shoot me some squirrels. I am done with squirrels right now. My husband got me a t-shirt, and he said the squirrel warrior, because I got me a water gun, and I give them heck. They know that mean ladies out there. They're just a rodent with a fuzzy tail. Anyway, I love my Mandevilles. They do real hardy. The ones that are left are still doing fabulous. They are very good during the heat, and they will tolerate it. And then we got this is a garden that actually is, it was one of our master gardeners here, and she's got petunias in there. Now petunias right now with this heat are not doing real good, but this fire bush over here, I have one of those in my butterfly garden in the front of my house, and it is going crazy. It is loving this weather. And then you've got, the I believe that's the neighbor grass back there in the background and kind of in the foreground. And I'm thinking that's verbena. I didn't really ever verify that, but I'm pretty sure that's verbena in the foreground. And that's another Texas superstar plant. And let me tell you right now, if you buy Texas superstar plants, the container will either have, let me show you, I don't, if you saw that first Texas logo, or if you can see my t-shirt, the logo will be a little tab in it. It will be on the container, whether it be a 5 gallon and 1 gallon, or even the little smaller ones. And 5% of everything you pay for a Texas superstar plant goes back into the program to help it keep it going, and keep our Texas superstar plants, and that they're doing the testing on. They have to survive 3 years on these farms before they are allowed to get into the Texas superstar book. And if you're taking notes, write down Texas superstar plants, because you can go out there and online and see the catalog. And I apologize, I don't have one here in front of me. As a matter of fact, I think I've given them all out. But the Texas superstar catalog will tell you all the Texas superstar plants.
So Charlotte, we had a question on the website about whether the superstar plants would survive our winters here in the Dallas area.
They do. They survive the winters as well. Now there's a few of them that I kind of, and you're going to see them in a few minutes. There's a few of them that I kind of call borderline. When the Texas superstars was created, it covers the whole state of Texas. Well, you and I both know that the Valley and the Panhandle are totally, it's like 2 different states. But the bulk of these will survive through our winter. As a matter of fact, plumbagos, and you'll see one in a minute in a picture. I have a plumbago that has been in the ground, and he'll die all the way back, but he'll come back. I have one in a pot that I bring into my garden room, and he's huge. He's loving this summer, but he would die all the way back. And I kind of baby a few. I have a few babies that I bring in. My husband's dreading me being in my bougainvillea this year because he's bigger than I am, and he's in a pot.
Charlotte, aren't most of the Texas superstars, are they mostly perennial, or it seems to me that a lot of them are annual and not meant to go past a year?
Oh no, they're all supposed to be perennials.
Okay, because bougainvillea I have never seen survive a winter.
Well, and it does in South Texas. See, that's
gotcha.
The thing.
Okay.
The caveat is
so it's a perennial, but not here. It's a perennial in San Antonio,
exactly.
But it's an annual here.
Exactly. Okay. So they've never, like I said, they've got these farms. One of the farms is up in the Panhandle. One is in Central Texas. Of course, one is in San Antonio. One is in Bryan, Texas, because that's where A&M is. And then there's a farm in East Texas. So they do, these all over. So what they're saying, the good percentage of, say there's 5, if they survive in 3 of those gardens, then they can make it to the Texas superstar. And we kind of have to test them here. I will talk about another one besides the plumbago, but my plumbago came back. It survived that Arctic blast. And so, but boogies would be, I call them boogies, but the bougainvillea, to me, they would be borderline. And if you have it in a pot, you might want to bring it in. The funny thing is we built this, I had a greenhouse and it died its natural death after about 10 years, one of those prefab things. And I told my husband I wanted a garden room. So I've got this garden room now, and it's got the, the new high, I don't know what you call it, the high grade windows that are, double paned. My bougainvillea blooms in that garden room because of the filtered light and everything. It'll bloom in January. But I remember last year he was blooming and it was a pretty light pink. It was just like a baby pink. I put it outside when the weather got good enough. Overnight it turned purple. I just thought it was fascinating that the filtered light would, make it look that much, be that much different. So, it was fascinating. Let's see, go on to your pintas. Okay, pintas are supposed to be as hard as can be, but I'm having trouble with mine. I don't know about it all, but it is a Texas superstar.
I thought those were annuals too. I've always thrown them out.
No, mine come back. Yeah. Okay, let me get to peppermint hibiscus. Now that's another one that I think is borderline, but they have, if it survives 3 of those fields, then they've put them into the Texas superstar. Yeah, we questioned them. There was about 50 of us master gardeners raising our hand, go, but what, that would not survive in Abilene,
Charlotte, do you guys have trial gardens for Texas superstars? And where is the trial
That's
garden
what I was mentioning. There's one up in the Panhandle. And when you Google,
do you have one here in
no.
Okay.
The closest one to us would be in East Texas. And
one here. That surprises me because they got ag center here.
they didn't tell us that criteria, but they have them in the 5 parts of the state. They do have them in the, and I can't remember, I don't think it's near Abilene. It's probably south of Abilene. They have one in East Texas, and I don't exactly know. I want to say it's around Henderson. And then, like I said, they have one in Bryan, Texas. They have one in San Antonio, and then they have one somewhere down in the valley because they were trying to, cover all of the areas. And, a lot of us have to try some of these, like my lantanas. They'll come back. They survive. Now, FYI, see this one that's yellow and orange? It's not as hardy as the yellow one. And you may have heard this, but if not, I'm going to repeat it. When you buy a plant and there's one that's variegated and one that's solid, the solid one is the parent. The variegated is more than likely the spinoff or the hybrid. And anything that's a hybrid is not going to be as hardy. Same thing with, airplane plants. The solid green is hardier than the variegated ones. Any of your plants that are variegated and there's a green that came from a solid one. Same thing with roses. And I realize we're not even talking about that right now, but all the rosacea that hit the roses in Texas, it was, I think, 2 years ago. And it was a blight. It was a mite, a little tiny mite that was attacking. Do you know if you had a tried and true old rose, like I had Don Juan, and I can't even think of the other one I had, mites won't touch it because they are not hybrid. All the knockoff roses were the ones that got affected and died during this blight. So when you're thinking about plants, buy something that's old, tried and true. I'm going to add another thing here. Farmers that grow these, don't buy them at your big box store. You need to go to a mom and pop store or someone that's a local grower, that buys from someone that's a local grower. Like we have here in Denton, I bet we have 5, painted gardens out on 380 is a great one to get local things. Matters, but buy from a local, because they buy from local growers and they're going to be adaptable to this area. The big box stores will ship things in from Indiana. Well, we know that we don't have weather like Indiana. If we did, we wouldn't be all sweating right now. So, that's another, thing to think about is, where you buy your plants, Okay, there's the plumbago. And actually, I think I have another pic. Yeah. If you've been down to San Antonio, the plumbagos grow right there on the river. And that's a big, I know everyone's eating at that Mexican restaurant across the way from that big plumbago, but they're very hardy down there. I wasn't sure I could get one to grow up here. And there's another plant too. I think I'll show you it in a minute, an Esperanza. But the plumbago does come back. It survived that Arctic blast we had. It may not get as big and bushy, as it was by the end of the growing season, because they grow and they bloom for about 6 months here, because we do have, real good climate most of the time. Of course, we always joke about it, right? We have 2 climates. We have winter and summer. Okay, and this is the firecracker Jacoby. Now, I'll be honest with you, I don't think that one would do well up here, but it is a Texas superstar plant, and it's almost a tree variety. Now, it probably will survive once once it gets established. And let me throw this in here right now. Any plants that you plant that you need to water them for the first year, because they got to establish that root system. They are not going to survive on, whatever rain we've got. You can't, just go poke them in the ground. And it covers trees. If you plant a tree, you need to water it to get its root system established. And then it will survive, whatever comes after that. The trees that we lost here in Denton were newly planted, most of them. And they didn't survive. Whatever. Okay.
Charlotte, they have that saying about perennials. The first year they sleep, the second year they creep, and the third year
then they leap. Yeah, sleeper, creeper, leaper. Yeah, the third year is the key to your plants. I always like that. Sleeper, creeper, leaper. And this is shower of gold. Now, I personally don't have, like I said, I don't have a big yard. This is kind of an invasive plant. It only comes in the goldish colors, and it gets about 2 to 3 feet tall. So depending on, what kind of landscaping you're wanting to do, you might want to, be careful with that one where you want to plant it. Oh, this was the one I wanted to point out to you. Water lilies. Now, there ain't no way it can survive without water. I think there was a little, now I'm going to say this now, but I think there was a little politics. And I became a Texas superstar well over 10 years ago. But when the water lily guy talked to us, and they'd already told us they have to survive on these farms, I'm going, is there a little politics here? Because water lilies, they have to be in a pond. They can't be out in that pasture. So when I said early on, there's a little caveat here, I'm going to say that 90% of them are good, but maybe there was some politics getting this guy, and I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but he gave us probably 45-minute talk on water lilies. And only one particular variety, the Texas Dawn, is the one that made the Texas Superstar. And that would be that little white one there in the center, kind of spiky looking, water lily. And y'all are the pond people, so y'all know better than I do. If all water lilies are like mine were, I kind of like a flower to last longer than, it come up, and if you don't catch it that day, you missed it. Now, they're pretty, but that was just my experience with water lilies. If you got a variety that lasts longer, you might want to, let me know, see where I'm at here. And there's another, now, if you look in here, you're going to see some of the plants that you can grow in your water. They've got some water lilies there. They've got, let's see what that one is. I can't tell, but you've got some cannas back there in the back. Now they may be in a pot out of the pond, because I've never seen cannas. Do y'all grow cannas in your ponds?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes,
So they,
absolutely.
Those look like they're in a bog. It looks like there's a bog that's surrounding that pond. You see
okay.
the divider over here on the far left.
Yeah. So you
I
think
all
that's
those
that's
plants in the background are in a bog.
yeah.
So their
Now
feet are
this plant,
pretty wet. And
this
and they
spider
do well.
plant that's at the front, and I can't remember off the top of my head, and I didn't make a note on it.
That's a papyrus or a
Papyrus, that's it. Because I have it in a pot, but I keep a tray under it to keep enough water to it.
yeah. There's a lot of plants like cannas, the papyrus that they can grow in the dirt or the water. Texas
Okay.
star hibiscus, same thing.
Yeah, and y'all know that butterflies won't light on water or whatever. They like a little, like probably like a bog, so that when they get a drink, they want something very, very shallow. Because I have ponds and bird baths, and they will never go to my, my pond or my bird baths. I have to keep a muddy area so that they can, they can get their water. And this has got, of course, again, some petunias. Now, the Mexican sage and the Mexican petunias are hardy as can be. If anybody wants any, they can come to my house. I will give them to them because they are also invasive. Now, if you keep them in a pot, you can keep them contained. But if you have an area you want to cover, Mexican petunias will be the ones you want to do. And again, there's a fire bush in this picture, and it's in the lower, I guess, the left-hand corner. They're very, very hardy. Like I said, I have one out front, and it is doing fabulous. And it is, also a Texas superstar plant. And the
Have you had a lot of luck? Have
Yes,
you had
ma'am.
a lot of luck with the Mexican sage here?
Yes, I have it. Now this year it's spindly, but I have a lot of luck with my Mexican sage. I have it in the shade and I have it in the sun. And right now it's a little hot, and if I don't water enough, it gets a little sparse, I'm gonna say, but it has not, died away. But no, I've had good luck with the Mexican sage. And what I find out, if you can get them real thick in the spring, that foliage will cover the soil and keep it moisture longer. Now, tell me that a orchid is going to make it. No, this is another one of those that I think there was some politics, or they wanted some, house plants or some hybrids, in their Texas Superstar book. But this moth orchid, which the reason it's called a moth, that's another funny story. They used to, when they tell us that someone grows a flower, or when they were naming, flowers in the beginning, that they are all professors. They're borderline geniuses. And if there's some professors there, just take this with a grain of salt. But they look at that and they go, that looks like a Turk's cap, or that looks like a moth, or and that's what they call it. Now, of course, it'll have a botanical name as well. But here's something I'm going to add that has been happening for a long, long time. Farmers will grow a plant, not orchids, but farmers will grow a plant, and they will say, this I'm going to call, a Mexican petunia. And then, as you know, farmers have to rotate crops. So they do same thing with flowers that they're raising for, the landscaping. So 2 years from there, they will plow it up and they'll plant something else. And then 2 to 5 years later, they'll replant, say the Mexican petunias, but they'll name them something else. So don't be surprised if you go into, one of your local landscapers and you go, but my grandma called it this. because your grandma had a name, the original name, and then a farmer, you know, rotated it through his crop and brought it back 10 years. They can call them anything they want. So the name you may see in my lifetime, I'm 76 years old. I have seen different plants have 5 different names. I go, well, wait a minute, that they changed the name. So, you know, if you like a plant, you got to, you know, research to get it or find out what its, you know, what its name was originally. And then if you see it and it look like it, go ahead and get it, because more than likely it is the plant that you're wanting. They just changed the names, and we've seen it over and over again. If I do this, there's some more of the orchids. Now this is a tree bush. Does anybody have Vitex? It's a very, very hardy, and it's a short tree. When I say it's a short tree, yes, ma'am. I thought I heard someone say something. But a Vitex has the most beautiful purple bloom. If I hadn't planted so many crepe myrtles in my yard, which are dropping stuff everywhere, I would have planted a Vitex, because they're very, very hardy, and you can keep them cut back. They can be a large shrub, or if you have an area, you know, you want to put them in where they're in full sun, but they will survive with whatever water, whatever soil you put them in. But they are very, very hardy.
Charlotte, this is Lisa. I have Vitex.
You have a Vitex. Do you like your Vitex?
I do. It's beautiful. It's huge. It's a really fast grower. It gets some really crazy limbs that want to come down and scratch the crud out of the top of my car. And it's very invasive. So
okay.
You think crepe myrtles send up babies? Usually the crepe myrtles are attached to the roots. They're like tethered babies. A Vitex is seed driven, and they go everywhere. So you have to pay close attention, because they might grow 3 feet in a year. But wow. I love it. I love it. I'll tell you that. But you got to pick the perfect place, and you have to know that you can't just like, oh, let it be. You can't do that.
Yeah.
Well, and you can make it shaped like a tree. Like that one's more of a bush, but you can take off all those bottom.
Yeah, but it's a constant. It's not one and done. I'll tell you that.
It's not low maintenance.
Yeah, it's
and if
just like a crepe myrtle.
Any,
you're constantly trimming it.
And if anybody needs any, I have bunches and bunches of them. And my bees have changed them into various shades of the lavenders, pinks, and almost white.
Wow. Oh, I'd love to see that. I'll stay in touch. Rebecca, we're going to do that anyway, right? Wasn't that Rebecca?
Yes, it was.
Okay. I thought we got a lot in common. We figured that one out for sure.
You're at least in the same county.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, I had the hardest time. I don't know how to get back now. Went past the one I wanted to
Just hit the back button. Just hit your back arrow.
Oh,
there you go.
Thank you. Thank
you.
you.
You're welcome.
Because it was just jumping. And that one looks blurred. Normally it doesn't look that blurred. But anyway, that's
small helva lily.
Yeah, and that's a small water feature. And for most people that are looking at the Texas Superstars, they're not pond experts like you guys are. But I imagine that's what, about a 3-foot pot that they've got that one in?
Probably not even that. It's probably 2 to 2.5. It's like the size of a whiskey barrel and not as deep.
Okay, this one is pretty tall. I don't have the whole picture, but it's at least I want to say 3 foot height. Of course, I don't know how much roots. Like I say, I've kept my cannas, pretty isolated in the pot, the cloth pot that I have. I don't know if you've seen those felt pots. And I can't remember now what it's called.
They're great.
Huh? Yes. This one has been fabulous. just fabulous. Anyway, the reason I wanted to show you this one is they showed this one in our class, and that's, you know, that's a gorgeous tree out there. It's in a cemetery. You probably can't even tell at the bottom. And the professors were joking that Professor Foy, his name is Foy, Foy. He's actually from the Orient. I don't remember exactly which country, but if you've been to the Dallas Arboretum in the spring, when you see the dinner plate size hibiscus, he's the professor that hybrid that. So he was curious about this tree, and he climbed over a fence to go, you know, figure out what it was, because he hadn't seen it. I guess they don't have them, but it's a Chinese pistache. And I don't know if any of y'all have Chinese pistache, but I had 2 in my yard until a tornado took out one. But God was with me, because the tree literally just laid down in our yard, did not hit the fence, did not hit my house, and didn't hit the greenhouse. It was 30-foot tall tree, but it was a Chinese pistache. But that is a Texas superstar as well. And of course, that one's a red oak. And you know, you can keep those low. Red oaks, though, have a tendency to like to grow under the shade of a bigger tree, because they're not a massive tree. We have some here in Denton County, but they actually do better. They're not crazy about this heat right now. Now, they're not going to die. They're just going to go, and you'll probably notice that with a lot of your plants right now. They're not growing new leaves or anything. They're just sitting there going, I'm just going to survive. Try to, survive what's going on. Now, here's a new one that Dr. Foy is experimenting with, and it's called the Arctic Frost Mandarin Hybrid. He's crossed a tangerine with an orange. I don't even think it's on the market yet. I don't know if y'all can see Dr. Foy there at the bottom, but I'm 5 foot tall. I'm not sure he's any taller than I am, but he's a very short man. But he loves to do different hybrids. So this is, a fruit tree that he has hybrid. Oh, I don't know if y'all be interested in this, but can anyone tell me which trunk would you want to take off if you were, trying to straighten that tree up?
The big one.
You take the big one off?
Well, if you want it straight, you're going to go with a straight shoot, I would think.
Yep, you're exactly right.
Which
that's how,
that's going to break your heart, because you're cutting the big one off, but
I know.
It's
but
going
then
off the far right. Yeah. We don't want that. That's what you want.
But then you're going to get a straighter trunk.
Yeah.
And it'll be a prettier tree. And with that being said, we mentioned crepe myrtles just a minute ago. I didn't know this when we built our house 23 years ago. I was not a master gardener. My husband told me, he said, Charlotte, why don't you join the National Arboretum? They'll send you 10 trees. Well, they did. They came in a manila envelope that was about 11 by 14, and it was switches. And on each of the little switches was like pink or purple or yellow or whatever, which went away real quick. And I went and planted them around my yard. Now, I know that I've had a green thumb most of my life. When I became a master gardener, it kind of got short truths. I didn't know as much as I thought I knew. But I took these trees and went and planted them all over my yard. Every one of them survived. Even an apple tree, and my husband, who's an Aggie as well, he said, trees don't grow in Texas. And I said, well, you tell my apple tree that, after he had given me, 300 little green apples, that they weren't really good to eat, but they made great applesauce and, apple cobbler and that kind of stuff. Until, and y'all may have been affected by this as well, I believe it was about 4 years ago, there was a blight that came through, and it was another mite that attacked all the fruit trees. And some were more successful than other. I treated mine for a year and then I lost that apple tree. But it was kind of neat that I grew it. But here's the funny part. 9 out of those 10 trees that I put in the ground made it. And the odds are just really weird. As a matter of fact, I just took out a pecan tree that was over 55 foot tall, and its trunk had a good 2.5-inch diameter. But I had planted it in the wrong place. I was not a master gardener. I had planted it probably not 5 foot from the corner of my house. So you know that the trunk of it was going to mess with it, and it was hitting my chimney. It was doing all kinds of stuff, and I'm going, it's got to go. And I hated to lose. But the good thing, remember I told you earlier that I'm not happy with squirrels? They used to nest in that pecan tree. And I don't know if you know this about squirrels, because I did a little bit of research. Did you know that they are kind of, well, we call them gypsies? They'll build a nest, sleep in it for a week or two, and then move on and build another one. They do not stay in a nest for a year. They don't, or a season. They might have, anyway, getting rid of the pecan tree got rid of most of my squirrels. But, you're not going to get rid of all of them. Now let's see what I've got next here. Oh, I've got a picture of where exactly, we cut off the big, and now you're going to have a tall growing tree. Oh, and I was going to say about the crepe myrtles, when they're starting to grow, even if they're 5 or 7 feet tall, cut them back to only 3 to 5 trunks, because we know that they go nuts, but they will be hardier and healthier, and you won't have the crossing and the rubbing. I've done it wrong for years, but I've finally learned the right way, and we've had to trim a lot of our crepe myrtles. Oh, and here's another picture of Dr. Foy's, what do you call it? The frost, anyway, it's his orange tangerine. Now there's another water feature. Now I would love to have that in my backyard, because I don't have a backyard that big, but I love, the rambling of the waterfall, how it waterfalls down. That looks to me, and I don't know where they got this picture, but that looks like that could be in an arboretum or somewhere. Maybe not particularly somebody's backyard. But I think that, that is gorgeous. And this happens to be my backyard. And now the Boston ferns need shade. You've got Boston ferns in there. I have irises. They, did real well through the spring, and they will come back. I don't ever dig my irises up. I believe I've got some hostas in there. And my husband managed to kill that. That was a Rosa Shannon bush there. But that rose bush that is on that shepherd's hook, I still have that rose. And he gets a little spindly, but I still have that one. And I'm going to share one of my favorite poems. My garden beautifies my yard and adds fragrance to the air, but it's also my cathedral and my quiet place of prayer. So little do we realize the glory and the power of He who made the universe lies hidden in a flower. Thank y'all for inviting me.
Thank you, Charlotte.
Thank you. Really appreciate your speaking to us. I mean, this has been excellent.
Thank you, Becky. Thank you. Does anyone have any
Can you
questions?
stop sharing, Sharon? Charlotte?
Oh, yes. Stop sharing. Now we got it.
I got Sherry and Charlotte.
Then we see you.
Tangled up. My apologies.
Anyway, this is the logo though that y'all need to look for if you're going to buy Texas Superstars.
It doesn't have the pretty flowers around it though.
This one does. It has, I think it has.
But that's a
zinnias.
T-shirt. They don't have that on the little stickers and signs, do they?
No, you're
Yeah,
right. That's what you were
she
saying.
meant.
No,
That's what
no,
she
I
meant.
have the flowers. No, the logo is just the logo.
Thank you so much for being sharing your garden and your experience and just the acting and the writing and all of that fun stuff. I
What
was on
thing?
Dallas too. We might have crossed paths.
Oh, we probably did.
Yeah, I actually worked at the Marriott when they were filming. They'd stay at the Marriott Quorum. So
Yep.
I
Been
was
there
up
many
close and
times.
personal with a lot of those guys. So
Yep, been there many
anyway,
times.
that's a lot of fun. A walk down memory lane. Does anybody have any questions for Miss Charlotte?
Like I say, if you'll go out and look up Texas Superstars, there's been a few added. Every year they take some out and put a few new ones in. I would say 95% of the book stays the same, but they do, you know, they're always testing new flowers.
We've got a question. Do we have contact info in case we have a question later?
Yes, and you see the spelling of my name? Okay. My email is charlotte@charlottecanion.com.
And Google will want to change the spelling of her last name to Cannion or Canyon is my experience.
Yeah, don't do it wrong. You won't
And
get
Google's talking in the background right now, trying to backtalk me.
Yes.
Sorry
I
about
have a
that.
question, Charlotte.
Yes, ma'am.
The places you mentioned in Denton that were the neighborhood, the places that had neighborhood
Yes,
plants.
they buy from local growers.
Do you know if they have plants that are not treated with those neonicotinoids?
Okay, check out Painted Farms on 380. Because Painted Farms, the gentleman that has that actually does research for the state of Texas on plants. And the reason I want you to check them out, they're not open like a regular retail store. They only open 3 or 4 days, certain hours to, you know, to sell their plants. But I know that everything is natural there.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And I think it's Painted Flower. There's another one called the Plant Factory that's brand new, and he buys local.
Is it Painted Flower Farm?
Painted Flower Farms, yes. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. And the other one, like I say, is called the Plant Factory, and they are at 288 and McKinney. But they're brand new. They actually opened right before COVID, so COVID kind of shut them down a little bit, but now they're going strong. And when I go buy plants, that's one of the places I go to.
Awesome. Any other questions for Charlotte? Let's take ourselves off mute and give Charlotte a big round of applause. As an actor, I completely understand needing that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Charlotte.
Thank you.
I'm
Y'all are welcome. It's fun.
going to go ahead and stop the recording here, but we can continue our conversation.